Welcome to the Chief of Cybersecurity podcast, where we discuss relevant information concerning the cybersecurity workforce, business development, and best practices, made possible by CMIS. Learn more at CMIS.net. And for a list of authorized publications, visit DewayneHart.com. And now, here's your host, Dewayne Hart.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another section of the Chief of Cybersecurity podcast. Over the past 2 years, I've spent an enormous amount of time writing the cybersecurity mindset, a virtual and transformational mode. And one of the sections is titled Transforming the Mindset. And under that section, it focuses on artificial intelligence and digital modernization. And speaking of artificial intelligence and digital modernization, this is what we want to deep dive into today. How can artificial intelligence and machine learning benefit cybersecurity? There's a current trend where cybersecurity needs another level of support because of all the data, because of all the malware that is occurring, because of all the recent trends and the attacks, and also, too, because a lot of organization wants to transition over to automation. So let's deep dive into the goals and outcome of the show and see what we are going to be discussing today. First of all, I am going to build a practical definition of what artificial intelligence and machine learning encompasses. Then I'm going to look at some of the industry use of artificial intelligence and machine learning, because outside of cybersecurity and technology, there are other uses for artificial intelligence and machine learning. And for the core of this podcast session, what's the cybersecurity connection? How does artificial intelligence and machine learning actually adapt, operate, and fit within cybersecurity? Now, there are some pitfalls as well, because when you implement any type of program or methodology into cybersecurity, you're always going to have some pros and some cons. So what I'm going to do is to look at some of the pitfalls discovered. And last, what can we ultimately achieve? Let's just think about this for a second. If you're going to implement a methodology into cybersecurity, you always want to be successful. Can you be successful? What are the benefits? And this is going to be the last segment that I really want to focus on. So to start our podcast session off here, let me just focus on the definitions here. Artificial. When you see the term artificial, it is something that is designed by humans. One of the other factors is that you think about robots. You think about robotic software. Think about when you were going to college and in your computer science course, there was a subject called decision support systems and expert systems. Those are part of artificial intelligence. Now, intelligence itself is the ability to learn or understand. So if I take something that is designed by humans and it's supposed to give someone the ability to learn or understand, all right? So that means that it's taking on the mindset of humans and it is developing an electronic brain, right? So artificial intelligence gives you automation. So that means that humans are replaced or repositioned, and there's a robotic software in place that actually takes over the work and all the processing and all the thinking. Now for that to operate, you have to simulate humans, okay? And so you have to understand the human behavioral factor. And some of those factors are problem solving, learning, and planning. This is where artificial intelligence comes to surface. And artificial intelligence is it's a major growing platform now. Some of the other elements that actually go along with artificial intelligence is to go and to think about the brain cell, right? And actually knowing that as a child grows, they become intelligent. They begin to gain certain type of behaviors because they learn about life. And this is what artificial intelligence does. It models the same concept. As you begin to develop these robotic software programs, these robotic software programs operate in a learning mode. And pretty much this is the electronic brain. And this is where machine learning comes to surface. All right. So when you think of machine learning, it is a bunch of algorithms. It is the idea of creating a brain cell with all the information required to act like a human would, or to respond like a human would. Okay. But it's very complex too, because it follows the model of computer science because there's algorithms. And if anyone has took a computer science course before, you understand how algorithms work. Let's just say, for instance, if you created an algorithm that said that you need to take 5 steps, turn around, and sit down. Now, what I just stated sounds very simple, but to a computer, that could be 200 lines of code. So just imagine if you was using machine learning and try to simulate the brain cell. Imagine how many lines of code that need to be created. All right. Now, the benefits of this machine learning is that it can pinpoint anomalies that humans are incapable of finding. But in order for this to happen, there needs to be a model built. And that model means that you are going to put that machine in a learning mode. When we are talking about a machine, we are talking about a robotic software program. Okay. And there are plenty of robotic software programs on the market, and they all are built in a capacity to learn, but artificial intelligence is the outcome. Underneath of that is where machine learning comes to play into surface. All right. Now, outside of normal technology, there are certain industry usage of artificial intelligence and machine learning. So let's just look at a couple here. Google remembers your history and makes suggestions. Advanced web search. Every time you go to Google and you do a search for a particular car, have you noticed that on the side you will see a list of all these different type of car dealerships? Because there's a smart search engine there that actually remembers that you were searching for a car vehicle, and it make suggestions. If you go to Facebook, have you noticed that you get this little indicator at the top, and it tells you that these people can be suggested friends? Because Facebook tracks your profile, it tracks your friends, it tracks the type of people that you speak to on Facebook, it tracks your lifestyle. And this is where artificial intelligence and machine learning come to surface as well. Trading and investment company use it as well so that they can predict the stock's future. Take into consideration, the market, take into consideration how a stock has been performing over the last 15 to 20 years, and take into consideration of the type of investors that are investing into those particular stocks. Vegas, I'm going to make this straightforward. Have you noticed that the slot machines in Vegas are all on the network now? Because they are using algorithms and machine learning. I was actually speaking to a business associate last year, and the business associate was telling me that in Vegas, there are video games created where they are using machine learning now. And these machines are supposed to be for gambling now. So what's happening is that normal type of video games that you play at home, like on Xbox, they are now becoming part of a gambling network. All right. Looking at self-driving vehicles. There are vehicles now that can self-drive you to work every day. All right. Have you seen that commercial where there's a Domino's vehicle that pull up to the front door and you can get your pizza out and you can come inside? Well, you know what? That's part of machine learning, because those vehicles have to understand a roadmap, and also too, the vehicles have to understand that there's a red light. Okay. And also too, telephone customer service. Telephone customer service is very important too, because when you call Comcast or either AT&T and you have a problem, have you noticed that there's like a robot there, and that robot have you to provide questions so that it can give you answers? Well, that's robotic software. Okay. Human resource and recruiting uses artificial intelligence as well, so that they can find the best candidate, because your resume has certain bullet points on there, and these online job ads and these programs searches through your resumes to see whether your skill set matches what the job requires. All right. The healthcare industry uses it as well so that it can predict what type of medication to give to patients based on that patient's history, based on the type of medication that doctors have been giving patients with similar type of conditions. Artificial intelligence is used to predict what type of medication that should be given to a patient. Now, these are some of the industry usage of artificial intelligence and machine learning. So, what's the cybersecurity connection? I would say that big data and faster decisions. As the industry starts to grow and users have a dire need for more data, okay, that data needs to be processed and faster decisions needs to be made, because in cybersecurity, there are all types of events that are happening daily, such as vulnerabilities and threats. And the human eye can really analyze that data, but it takes time. So artificial intelligence or robotic software programs are created now where these programs can look at all these data feeds and come up with metrics and trends, and to give you a dashboard and to tell you exactly what your problems are on your enterprise. Just imagine that. 100 million transactions and events are happening daily. And now you have a software program that can figure out the information for you. All right. There are logs data as well. Logs are back-end type of programs that keep track of all these events. And if you have 100 million rows of data, the human eye may be able to see some of it, but the artificial intelligence platform can go through and decipher things that are wrong and to give you indications. And those indications are usually red. All right. One of the other areas is a breach response. Artificial intelligence platform can predict a breach before it happens. And that means that organization can react quickly. Okay. One of the other areas too is that intrusion detection platforms. Now, intrusion detection is as stated, because in organizations, when unauthorized personnel try to penetrate a system, an intrusion detection system is supposed to notify the organization and to let that organization block the particular intruder from gaining access to the system. Now, to make that happen, you're going to have to program that intrusion detection system to know that certain IP addresses are not allowed on the system. Only traffic coming from a designated source should have access to the system. Websites are prevented. And these intrusion detection systems can be put in a learning mode. And in that learning mode, it will sit there and actually identify how the organization operates. Think about the behavioral patterns. Firewalls have this technology as well too, because firewalls can be put in a behavioral mode, okay? And a firewall will learn the traffic and learn how people are sending data in and out, learn the data points, learn the IP address scheme. And then if anything operates outside of the information that is collected, it sees it as an intrusion and it can block traffic. Some of the other areas is that when you have the access attempts or like infrequent logon failures, these intrusion detection systems can actually pick up the information, and it'll let the security analyst know that someone is probably trying to invade the system. Enhanced threat intelligence. This is probably one of the two most sound useful for artificial intelligence because it can predict threats. If you think about the amount of threats that can be imposed on the enterprise, there are 50 million different type of ways that data can be grabbed for an enterprise. And when that data is collected, somebody has to massage that data and analyze the information to see what type of threats are probably on the enterprise. And that's what the artificial intelligence platform does. But the platform has to be programmed, and also too, the program has to be put in a learning mode because these threats are changing on a daily basis. Now, this is one of the cons to a artificial intelligence platform, but I'll be talking about that more as we go through the exercise here. All right. Some of the other factors too is that malware. Now, when it comes to malware and artificial intelligence platform can predict future type of virus attacks, especially if it knows the different type of vulnerabilities that are existing through malware, and it knows that certain type of assets are vulnerable and they have not been patched. It can predict intrusions and malwares because the information is taken from different feeds. When I talk about feeds, I'm talking about agencies like the Department of Homeland Security, looking at the other agencies out there that actually provides threat intelligence information, looking at the vendors like Microsoft. So if you imagine there's 1,000 different type of information feeds that an organization interfaces with, and that organization has to determine their level of threats and whether malware exists. Now, that would be increasingly labor-intensive, hard to try to find out all those particular threats in your enterprise. So that's where the artificial intelligence platform comes to surface. Some of the other things to be talked about is the pitfalls. Okay. Now, it sounds great to have an artificial intelligence platform in place, but there are certain pitfalls that exist. So let's just look at some of these. Because there's so much data that actually needs to be processed, and a lot of this data come in data sets, organizations have a hard time trying to create the programs that can account for all the data sets. Because if you think about the human brain, right, there's so much information in the human brain. And humans are able to make quick decisions and to decipher information because it's naturally done. But when you have a man-made machine, there is a possibility of faults to occur because the software programs, and it's a robotic software program. So to keep track of all this data requires a massive amount of programming, requires a massive amount of computers and memory to go have in place as well. And also, too, getting all these efficient data sets take time and resources that most firms will not afford. So if a firm cannot afford to get all these data sets, because you have to account for every angle, every piece, every situation, every anomaly, because there's some ways of looking at this and try to decipher information based on different scenarios. And this is the most complicated part of artificial intelligence. But as you put the artificial intelligence platform in a learning mode, it begins to learn more and it begins to develop just like a 5-year-old will. So after 4 or 5 years of having that platform in place, imagine how smart that platform has become because it understands your environment. Something else is a pitfall is hackers. Hackers are now becoming very smart and sophisticated because they are using artificial intelligence platform to understand malware. Malware changes daily. Hackers change daily. How these hackers operate is that they use an artificial intelligence platform to see whether it is capable of being penetrated or broken. Okay, when I state penetrated or broken, I am specifying AI proof. So what a hacker does is, okay, I want to see whether this malware can be identified by an AI platform or not. And if it's identified, then the hacker can go back into the lab and studio and try to find more ways to bypass the AI platform. And I think that organizations should practice the same method. In the cybersecurity mindset, there's a chapter and a segment that I wrote called the adaptive mindset. And in that particular area, it has a larger discussion about hackers and mimicking their environments. And it's called the hacker's hat. Okay. Everyone should wear the hacker's hat. And that's a larger discussion about hackers and how they use artificial intelligence platforms to gain better success over regular cybersecurity professionals. So what can we ultimately achieve with artificial intelligence? One is predictive analytics. So you think of predictive analytics as a method to predict cyber attacks. And you are given certain analytical data. And this analytical data would tell you whether your servers are vulnerable, whether your desktops are vulnerable, and whether your enterprise is vulnerable based on the types of vulnerabilities that exist in your enterprise. Advanced decision making. Advanced decision making is very important because with this predictive analytics, organization can make decisions early instead of waiting on an incident to happen. Threat detection. You can identify threats before they become a major issue. And that's part of predictive analytics, artificial intelligence, and also the decision making. Increased visibility. This is discussion about if you have a security architect, do you know all your vulnerabilities and all your risks? Do you have an actionable view into all the loopholes or vulnerabilities in your enterprise? All right. And what you need to have is a view like a dashboard that tell you all your issues. Now, it's kind of hard to have a complete visibility into your enterprise when you have 100 million transactions that are happening every day. And this is what artificial intelligence comes to play into surface. It's that robotic software that is able to process data a lot faster than the human mind. Some of the other pieces is antivirus tools and AI capabilities can actually detect system anomalies by identifying programs exhibiting unusual behavior. If you think about a rogue device, or if someone keep going to a website that has been prohibited, and if you have 100 million people that are doing the same, then that artificial intelligence platform can take that data and feed it back to your intrusion detection system and pose a red flag in the corner. And then IT people should be able to react. Some of the other areas too is digital modernization. And under the section called Transforming the Mindset, there is a larger discussion about digital modernization, because digital modernization is as stated, is that you want to modernize enterprises. You want to make enterprises a little bit more efficient. You know, the old legacy way of doing business has to be removed. And this is where digital modernization comes to play into surface. And under that is automation. And automation happens because of artificial intelligence platforms that are created. Now we know that AI and machine learning can advance cybersecurity. So that's a fact that we learned. Faster access to processing and analyzing security events. So that's another fact. AI is intelligent technologies that can analyze enemy positions and movements. This is a new trend. The government is looking at ways to bring on AI for several military type units, because as the commanders go in the battlefield, you need to do a threat assessment and see what risks are pretty much imposing your unit or your ship. So what happens is that these AI platforms are used to map out the enemy location, targets, and their weapons, and to give the commanders better informed data, so that under a combat warfare environment, they can make better decisions. Now, what that does is that it provides veterans with the opportunity of engaging into artificial intelligence. And now, with artificial intelligence starting to grow, there are a lot of veterans that are at the front line of knowing how artificial intelligence works. And a part of that is that those transferable skill sets are a direct source to cybersecurity. Veterans are at the advantage of engaging cybersecurity and actually being part of a cybersecurity workforce, because they are gaining these skill sets. And, these skill sets are like situation awareness, okay? And also such as being proactive. And with these skill sets, they are becoming the new norm for cybersecurity. In episode 8, a more extensive discussion will examine veterans' transferable skill sets. Okay. So I am going to see you in episode 8. What transferable skill sets do military veterans offer to cybersecurity?
You've been listening to the Chief of Cybersecurity podcast, where you have gained relevant knowledge to enhance your cybersecurity mindset. Be sure to visit DewayneHart.com to learn more about authored publications, show notes, and discover more information concerning cybersecurity.